Why not? Welcome to this laying team meeting. This fine day, June 29th. Let's see. So I already added new MCPs. Let's look at the project board. So there's a couple of MCPs here. This one is the one that I'm proposing, and I guess we should probably put that in some other column. But there are two others, portable SIMD project group and declarative macro repetition counts I wanted to call attention to, especially this second one, because it seems like a relatively narrow proposal that probably wouldn't take too much work to serve as a liaison for. I think there's a few possible syntax options and so on, but it's not that big a thing. And so if someone has some interest in that, what this is about is basically giving someone a way to find out how many instances of dollar value there are in a vector when this thing matches. And I think the actual proposal that they have is something like dollar hash value. I don't know. Anyway, but there was another couple comments, but might be interesting. There you have it. SIMD is a little more complicated, but I think, Josh, you had some interest in sort of looking into that, right? We're talking to Henry already about it.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily the person in a position to be the primary champion of that, but I would be happy to help bring it along, and I'd like to see it make progress and have a project group of a few interested people to bring it forward.
Okay. So in terms of meetings, are any comments on those from anyone else?
The declarative macro repetition counts, I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. This was something that was proposed a long time ago. Did this person actually reference that previous discussion?
I don't remember.
Okay, that's all. I'll find out myself. Thanks.
If you are aware of a previous discussion of that, I'd like to see that referenced somewhere.
Yeah, I'll find it and maybe add a link to it at the very least.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm muted here. I agree that would be helpful, though I do think, or it's a good idea to leave the note. I would say, like, at least my hope is that these proposals are not meant to, it's not necessarily bad if they're not like super exhaustive, because the idea is more just to decide, do we want to put energy into it earlier on before drawing up a fully formed proposal. But it would be good to have it noted for when composing the real RFC as well. Okay, then I'll move on. Meeting proposals. So we had this meeting. I uploaded the video. It seemed like it was productive. I'm going to archive it. These are our two current meeting proposals. There's review safe transmute scheduled for this week, and this one which we haven't scheduled. So I'll take it to Zulip, I guess, but we should, if anyone has any thoughts of other things they'd like to discuss with the team, they should file an issue, and we should schedule the next couple of weeks. Before I go into active projects. So in terms of newly created RFCs, this is the list of RFCs. I'm trying to stay on top of some of these. So there's this, I guess there's nothing too new. There's this freeze trade, which I just noticed, but nothing tagged T-Lang. So let's look at the active items then. The instruction set RFC, this is basically waiting for an FCP, right? I think that's the current status. Waiting for everyone to check their boxes, I mean.
I think that's right.
I'm going to assume that's confirmed. Okay. Any comments? Do we want to? I guess we'll ping some people. So these next two items, I'm trying to find someone. I may have found someone who will work a little bit on this issue of tainting fallback and no real updates on this other coherence issue. Project Safe Transmute, we have a scheduled meeting. Any other updates? I'm going to assume no. Okay. Inline assembly, any updates? Nope. FFI unwind, I'm not aware of any updates. There were some concerns raised around Windows and system unwind, but nothing new since last week. I think we're probably going to keep going with this basic approach, but I have to review the thread, maybe. And const evaluation, any updates on that?
Yeah, if match and loop stabilization PR landed. So we're on track, and then there's a bunch of little things that have gone through FCP, but
yeah, a bunch of minor pending FCP stuff. Okay, we'll come to it, I guess.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Good. All right then. P-high issues. These are both old and there's no updates on them. Moving on. Nominated PRs. So Ali proposed in const.fn to allow us to coerce from fixed size arrays to slices. And I moved to accept it. We got some checkboxes here. I think it's basically, it's already allowed in const. It's kind of an oversight that it wasn't allowed in the first place. So I nominated it already, but I'll remove the nomination. I just wanted to bring it up. Any comments on that before I go on? No. So the next one was issue 73778. Is a proposal to allow the likely and unlikely intrinsics inside of constant FNs, I guess basically because sometimes we want to use them, like for improved runtime performance. They have no real semantics. I think this is only allowing them unstably. So I nominated it, but I said I don't think it needs, I think since it's unstable, unless there's some objection raised in this meeting, I think we can just give Lang team approval. So any thoughts from the participants?
This seems entirely reasonable, and I would agree both with the statement that we don't actually need to FCP sign off this, as well as the fact that likely and unlikely makes sense to use in functions that should also be available at compile time, and at that point they can act as an identity function that has no other semantic. So this seems perfectly reasonable. Also, as a side note, I am hopeful that one day we may have const functions that do non-trivial CPU-intensive processing, in which case having likely and unlikely may actually have semantic meaning for an optimizer that may be useful at compile time, but that's a separate problem.
I suppose so. It's kind of science fiction right now. All right, does anyone, then I'll just say, does anyone disagree? Otherwise, I'm going to say that we discussed and gave our approval.
Sounds good.
Okay. Let me remove the nomination. So there's a pending proposal to stabilize transmute in constants and statics, but not const FN. Probably we talked some about this. It's got a lot of, oh, it's got almost all the checkboxes now. Hooray, okay. It's in FCP now. I think I'll just remove the nominated tag. If you disagree with that, go register a concern. This is still blocked. This PR has been nominated for a long time. We should probably fix that, but it's basically blocked on having a meeting and deciding our strategy, which we did not yet schedule. So I'm going to remove the nomination tag because there's nothing fresh here. Okay, so nominated issues. One. We already discussed this last time. I don't know that this still needs to be nominated. This was the matter of target feature and safety. Yeah, I think I just forgot to unnominate. The only thing I would mention while we're sitting here, that I did open an issue, which you can see here, related to discussing the closure, the question of like, can a closure inside of a function use the target features of that function? I don't think there's been any real objections raised to why that would be a problem. Oh man, this is awesome. We've got like not a lot of stuff today. Okay, so this C unwind ABI was nominated. I think I nominated this a long time ago. Yeah, just to bring it up. I don't think there's any new material.
I think part of the important question is what is the next step here, and is there anything blocking us from moving forward on it?
Yeah. Well, on the RFC specifically, you mean?
I mean, take your pick on the RFC or the project group. Either way, is there something blocking us from saying that we're ready to approve this and be done?
I don't think so. And I was gonna sync up with Kyle just to check. I guess the only question was, it was a little hard for me to tell whether there was a concern around the system ABI. So we had some discussion that I haven't had time to read in depth, but around Windows, I guess that Win API uses the system ABI extensively. And Peter was arguing that it should be, that he might prefer, I guess, that it would, like Windows Bunny that is, that it would permit unwinding by default, but on the other hand, it seemed like none of the functions in question actually do unwind, except in the case of like forced unwinds, which Windows will do in response to seg faults and other things like that. So I wasn't really clear why it would make any difference, but I guess I would be a little concerned if making this change required a 3.0 or whatever version. Whoa, sorry, I had some things falling around. If it required breaking changes to Win API, I'd be a little concerned. Kind of like we were concerned about the idea that maybe breaking changes are going to be required to libc. But I don't think it does, so. Other than that, I think we're ready to go forward. Then the question is, what else does the project group want to do? We still had this unresolved question around long jump, which I think would probably be the next thing to tackle. Okay, well, any other comments on that? Otherwise, I'll look at the RFC bot pending list. We're actually doing pretty well. I'm trying to get down to like not having a lot of things here. Scott, I see you're on the call. I'm going to badger you about these two.
Okay.
And I'm looking at the last one right now.
But apart from that, we kind of just have these really old ones. I guess we have to look at. I'm not sure what's going on with these. I've kind of forgotten.
I forget where we were on type description, if that was a scoping thing or if there was a piece that we were in agreement with.
If I recall, I raised some concerns about the interaction with like ref and let ref mute and so on, and basically there was
Oh yeah.
it was a little unclear to me. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, exactly how this type interacted with those concerns. But my hunch is this RFC is probably one we would want to kind of postpone, or not like close, as if somebody wants to pick this up and run with it, we might do a project group around it, but right now it's kind of stalled out. This is true for a lot of old RFCs, I think. But I don't know. All right, well, if no one else has anything to raise, then I think I'll say we can end the meeting quite early today.
There was one thing. There was an old action item on the old Dropbox paper, which I don't know if we're using the project board as our main thing to drive us now or not. But there was something I was supposed to do and did do right before the meeting started. There's an old pair of proposals regarding Alec error handler. This is under the bullet for Rust-Lang Rust issue 66740 that Nico's cursor is currently very close to, although not quite on. So I can give the sort of vocal summary of what my conclusion was, which is that we sort of made a decision and we should stick with it as a Lang team. I said I want to hold off on moving forward at the time because I saw that Alex had made some very strong statements saying he didn't like the proposal that we said we were going to go with. And then after further reviewing the situation, I realized, oh, Alex doesn't like either of these things, which is, what I wrote in my comment summarizing the situation. So as far as I can tell, our former analysis still stands, I think. And there was these two separate proposals. One was to stabilize this special alloc error handler attribute for marking a function as being the error handler for allocation failures. And the other proposal was to not stabilize that attribute, but rather just automatically inject one that panics, calls the panic handler. And that way we can avoid stabilizing that attribute. Instead, just people can start using the alloc trait on stable Rust. It's just that they'll be forced to have this default injected handler as what they get for the time being. So our inclination before was that we should go ahead and use, or I don't know if I should say it's our inclination or if it was also the libs team inclination, but whatever happened, it seemed like everybody was sort of agreed that we should just go with the approach that auto injected a panic handler, one that calls the panic handler. And I still think we should do that. There was some further feedback about whether we would do both proposals, which is something we were talking about as the Lang team. I think the Lang team has said we could independently decide about whether to do both these proposals as sort of separate questions. And there was some immediate feedback when we said that, saying, why would we do both things? We only need one of these things. And I think the right resolution there is that while we don't need both of these things, if, this is very important, if we actually extend the panic info that's fed to the panic handler with information about the allocation failure, then we won't need to adopt both. But that hasn't been done yet as far as I know. And I don't know what's going to be involved in making that change. So if that doesn't happen in a reasonable amount of time, then we still might need to consider this stabilizing this alloc error handler thing. But that's a question we can still delay until later.
Okay, why is the if? Maybe I'm not following. What is it about more information that means you don't need?
I've heard in terms of expressiveness, in terms of having the person who wants to actually respond to an allocation failure, with information about like what the allocation was, like what the layout for it was. The current panic, if we inject something that automatically panics, then you can't write a panic handler. I don't think you can write a panic handler that would be able to use the layout info because it doesn't have access to the layout info from the panic handler itself. It's an expressiveness concern, that's all.
I see. So what the point is, currently we panic. And the proposal was, well, we have this sort of way to intercept a panic. You could almost just use that, except that you need more information than what you have available to you.
Well, currently, to be clear, currently we have this special attribute, and on Nightly we have this special attribute that you can write your own handler in, and the one that's in standard, you know, does end up panicking. I think most reasonable implementations a reasonable implementation would panic. And the only concern I have is if someone, for some reason, has a vested interest in inspecting the information about the failure, like the layout that was the cause of the failure, then you can't express that using the panic handler strategy.
Okay, I think I understand. Like, basically, you were saying we might not need an allocation error handler. You could make the panic handler do that job, being a custom allocation error handler as well.
That was Boats' proposal. I have a link to the proposal where Boats outlined that idea. It was earlier in the thread.
Okay.
But either way, this is all these things are somewhat like, it's in the weeds in terms of what really matters, because I think what the average crate author wants is just the ability to make a not average crate author. The average no-stood author wants is the ability to link to liballoc on stable Rust. And we can give them that.
Yeah.
And I suspect most of them don't care about these details.
So by doing 66741, we give them that.
By doing, that's right, either 66741 gives them that, 66740 gives them that. The only question is, you know, how to do it. The Lang team earlier decided we should do 66740. I'm sorry, I didn't give enough context here. 66740 is the proposal that, wait, did I get this right? Yeah, 66740 is the proposal that stabilizes this special attribute that lets you make your own handler. So yeah, either one of those proposals would work. We earlier decided we should do 66741 because it has less of a surface, API surface that we have to worry about in terms of, you know, just maintaining in the future.
Okay. So I think we agree with that. And the question then is, the only question then is, like, do we sort of just not do stabilizing the full error handler and wait for someone to actually ask for that for a reason that is not, I want to use this crate?
I think that totally makes a lot. I think that makes a lot of sense. Just let somebody else wait till somebody asks for it.
Okay. I stand by. I think that sounds reasonable. All right. You wrote it already in the comment, basically, but I guess I can say that we discussed this issue in the @Rust Lang meeting today, and felt that we could delay stabilizing the error handler proposal until there is a specific request for some reason other than access to liballoc in the most context.
That sounds right to me.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody, then. Anything else? 1, 2, 3. Thanks for coming.